Okay, good Friday evening, everyone, and welcome to this first bi-weekly webinar of NORA.startup. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a kickoff of NORA, and one of those things of NORA.startup, and one of those things that we were really excited to announce is that we will have a specialized topic every second week. And this is the first of a long tradition of those NORA.startup bi-weekly seminars. And today, the topic, we will kick off with a very important and very interesting topic on how to acquire funding. So that means when you have an idea, I want to do something that is related to research and innovation, we want to get the money to actually do so. And today we will learn how to do that. And in this marvelous seminar, we have with us three participants that are highly educated on that topic. And those of you who are from startup companies, who are researchers and who are investors, are welcome to ask questions to all the panelists. Not only are you welcome to ask, but you're encouraged to ask, because these seminars are for you to get information from the panelists. So our first speaker is Paul Sigurd Malm, and he is a senior advisor for future and emerging technologies at the Research Council of Norway. He will speak first. After that, we will hear from Maria Erdal Askim, who is EU Counselor at Innovation Norway. And after that, we will have a panel debate, which also includes Anita Schjøll Brede. And I am Morten Goodwin. I'm a professor of ICT, working on artificial intelligence and part of NORA.startup. So we will then let everybody get in their seat and listen to Paul talking about European Innovation Council, Pathfinder, and Horizon Europe. And all the listeners out there, you should then get ready to ask the questions you have for Paul so that we can start the panel debate with those questions later. So Paul, you have 15 minutes to talk, and we will then follow with Maria afterwards. So Paul, please.
You can hear me?
Very nice.
You can hear me and you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm here to talk about Horizon Europe and the European Innovation Council. I'm working as a senior advisor at the Research Council of Norway, connected to the ICT group there. And I'm also then working with the EIC. I'm an NCP for EIC. So, first, a little bit about Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is the largest research and innovation fund in the world. It's approximately 90 billion euros, and Norway is actually a full member of the Horizon Europe through the EEA agreement, EES on Norwegian. We will be approximately 2% of the budget, but what we see from the financial return, the return of investment, it's much higher. We know that participation through international collaboration is very valuable for the ones that are involved. And it's a road to international opportunities, and also a way to stay tuned and be ready for opportunities. The main goal for Horizon Europe is green and digital transition. But when during the budget, when they set up the budget, COVID came, and as Margrethe Vestager said, COVID came and hit us, everyone in the face. But then also we saw that the urgency of science has never been more important than now, and still the green and the digital remains as goals. Horizon Europe is a gigantic program with tens and thousands of topics, and to make some kind of order in this, they have divided it into three pillars. We need to have a good research and innovation program. We need both curiosity-driven blue sky research, but we also need to be sure that they connect. The three pillars in Horizon Europe is on the left, we have pillar 1, that is basically addressing basic science. And then in the middle, we have pillar 2 that aim to make the pillar 2 that is addressing the global challenges through different clusters. And on the right, you see the pillar 3 that is called Innovative Europe. And within pillar 3, we have the European Innovation Council that is the main topic of the talk today. European Innovation Council aims at becoming, helping Europe become a leader in technology, and to hope to open up the market for European companies. When you see presentations of the European Innovation Council, they often start with empowering European innovators. EIC is Horizon Europe's instrument to foster disruptive and breakthrough innovation. Very often they talk about deep tech technology and technology-driven companies. It's commercialization of high risk and high impact technology. And they are trying to set up a one-stop shop for high potential and breakthrough technologies. The target audience is researchers and innovations in science and technology, and that want to explore game-changing technological directions. EIC has two main areas. It has one of them are called EIC Pathfinder, and the other one is called EIC Accelerator. For the ones who has been following Horizon 2020 up till now, EIC Pathfinder mainly is based on what was called Future Emerging Technology, or just FET for short. EIC Pathfinder mainly supports collaborative research, and it's mainly research driven. They have typical projects from around 3 million euros, and the funding rate is 100%. So you get you don't have to have any of your own budget into it. Most of the partners usually comes from universities and research institutions, but we see more and more small and mid-sized companies being part of these consortia. To help bring potential and promising results to commercialization, they also have different instruments that will help them explore potential pathways to commercialization. So how do you qualify for the EIC? One way to qualify for the EIC is through the Norwegian funding instruments. The Norwegian funding instruments provided by the Research Council of Norway and Innovation Norway is somehow complementary to the funding instruments in Horizon Europe. And here you see actually a few examples of companies that had success in EIC Accelerator recently. All of these companies have had been part of they have had funding from the Research Council or Innovation Norway. So I think that the Norwegian innovation ecosystem both is an integral part of the European innovation ecosystem, and it's a very good way to qualify to get funding in EIC. If we look at the Norwegian innovation ecosystem coupled with the European innovation ecosystem, you can see that we have some kind of instrument for, I'm sorry that this is in Norwegian, but you have different kind of project, the funding instruments that can fund technology and projects in different phases. Here you have the international and funding instruments on the top, and then you have the Norwegian funding instruments on the bottom. And to the left, you see instruments that the Innovation Norway has, and you have Investinor and Nysnø and other venture capitalists. Usually you see that successful companies, they go back and forth from maybe you have a promising innovation that starts in a research project, then they get money from EIC Pathfinder to develop it further, and then you see that they maybe get funding in Norway, and then they get back and forth until they get into the market. One example is a company called Cryonano. They are a very successful company that has been using the instruments to get into the market. Rune Rinnan is not the inventor, but he's at the board of this company. Cryonano started out, the funder of Cryonano started in 2013 as a research project. And in 2015, they got a new project, and they have been through both EIC, what was the start of EIC Pathfinder, and they have been in Eurostars, and they have been getting innovation funding through both the Research Council and also Innovation Norway. So this is an illustration on how you can actually get funding through the in the innovation ecosystem and also qualify for EIC. I think that was around 15 minutes.
So thank you very much, Paul. And then we're ready for Maria to follow up. And Maria comes from Innovation Norway, and she will talk more about the European Innovation Council and Accelerator. So Maria, is it your screen we're already seeing or no? So please share. And then for the audience, please remember to keep your questions coming so that we can have a fruitful debate later on. So Maria, please.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Maria Erdal Askim, and I'm an EU advisor and a national contact point for EIC in Innovation Norway. I will focus on the EIC Accelerator and tell you a little bit about how you can succeed when applying for funding from this program. The EIC Accelerator has been in a piloting phase since the middle of 2019, and it builds on a previous SME instrument. The most important change in the funding scheme has been the introduction of blended financing, and companies can now not only ask for support in form of a grant, but also a combination of grant and equity. And the EIC Accelerator will, as Paul already has mentioned, continue in the Horizon Europe program from 2021. The funding scheme is aimed at SMEs with high risk, high growth potential innovations that could drive economic growth. You can get grant funding up to 2.5 million euros, and you can get up to 70% of your project costs covered. In addition, you have the opportunity to request blended finance, meaning equity investment, up to 15 million euros. And the funding is thematically open. It's a completely bottom-up scheme. So who are they looking for in the accelerator? You need to have a groundbreaking innovation at the last stage before scale-up with a high risk and high growth potential. There is a priority to deep tech and long innovation cycles. It should build on research and development activities. And you need to show that you have the right team to bring this innovation to the market. A solid and convincing business plan, and you need to show a clear EU added value. You have to make sure that your company falls within the EU's SME definition. VCs can own up to 49% of the SME, and big companies up to 25%. If you're not sure if your company fulfills these criteria, you can take an SME self-assessment test. So what kind of activities or costs can be funded? It is activities that are necessary to develop your business concept further into a market-ready product or service. Examples are trials, prototyping, demonstration, and testing. And the project should take your innovation from TRL 6 to TRL 8 and market ready. The project usually run over 2 years. You've already seen the technology readiness level. So when you apply for funding in the EIC Accelerator, you have to be at least on TRL 5, preferably 6, and you should bring your project up to TRL 8 and ready for full commercial application. When applying, you have 3 choices. You can ask for grant only, financing your activities from TRL 6 to 8. If your proposal includes activities on TRL 9, the commercialization scale-up phase, you can give your consent for the funding to be changed into blended finance. Or you ask directly for blended finance, where you can use the grant up to TRL 8 and equity for the TRL 9. Now we see more and more companies asking for blended finance and grant with consent, and less grant only. All the projects are evaluated on the following 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. Excellence meaning how unique is your innovation? Is it truly groundbreaking and disruptive? Impact, focusing on the business case, the scale-up potential, and the societal impact of your proposal. And the implementation, do you have the right team, competence, and organization to bring your solution to the market? If you have requested an equity component, there will also be a due diligence process. So, who are the ones who end up succeeding in this strong competition? We know that it's important to demonstrate speed. If your solution was patented 12 years ago and you still haven't reached the market, that is not a good sign. On the other hand, we also know that you should have done the groundwork of your innovation already. But if you're still in the early research phase, other funding opportunities may be more relevant for you. Another important aspect is being able to document that you are non-bankable, meaning that you cannot leverage sufficient investment from the market. And in addition, we know that companies that succeed on average, they have between 10 and 30 employees, and they have received around 2 million Norwegian kroner in national funding. So what does it take to succeed with your proposal? You will be evaluated and need to convince on the total package, the team, the innovation, the feasibility of the idea, the impact, commercialization strategy, and scaling potential. And you need to show that you are a game changer, that you are bringing something really new and that can have an impact in the market. You need to show a solid investment strategy. Why do you want this money? And further, you need to show why you need public funding. The project has to be high risk and not able to attract sufficient funding from the private market, as I said earlier, with the non-bankability. Also, the management team. Are you the right team to make the company grow? And when preparing your proposal, you should think of the evaluator as if he or she was an investor. The commercial part of the proposal is more important than the technological part. And it's important to show that your product is innovative, but it is more important to show its commercial value. And yes, you are requesting funds for a specific project, but note that the evaluator is looking for an excellent company. So focus not only on the project, but also on the company, the history, strategy, the future, and ability to scale up. And make sure to clearly show how your proposal is relevant to Europe. Analyze the markets in Europe, detail how your product is relevant to Europe, and discuss European goals and regulations if relevant. And show EU patriotism, that you will contribute to shape new markets and generate jobs and growth in Europe. A good proposal is also written in an easy to read manner without repetitions, and most importantly, does not forget to answer any single question. So take the time to review and polish the language. And the evaluator who reads the proposal is a human being, so let him or her have a good time reading your proposal and use pictures and graphics where possible. So when you have a great innovation, an excellent business case, and a killer team, what do? The first thing you should do is register in the EU participant portal. And secondly, we recommend heading over to our colleagues at the Research Council to apply for Prosjektetableringsstøtte. This is a funding scheme aimed at increasing Norwegian participation in the EU programs, and it can be a helpful contribution to the resource-demanding proposal writing. And after you have done that, you should put all your efforts into writing the strongest possible proposal. However, what is important to note at this time is that there will be some changes in the application process and the evaluation process from 2021. These changes, along with the deadlines for 21, have not yet been announced by the Commission. And we will keep you posted to let you know when you can get started. What I can already say is that there will be a two-stage application process where you need to pass the first step with a short application to be invited to the second step, where you send in a full 30-page project proposal. And the evaluation process is also two-stage. The proposal will first be remotely evaluated by independent experts, and then the best project ideas will be invited for a face-to-face interview in front of a panel consisting of investors and other relevant experts. And it's the panel that takes the final decision whether you should get funding or not. I also included some inspiration. You can see the same companies from Paul's slides from earlier, because the EIC Accelerator is a tough competition. And it is, so that is something that is important to know, but Norwegian companies have done very well in this competition. And from this year's call in May, Norway had a record high number of funded companies with 7 in total, only beaten by France with 11, placing us second in Europe, which is, we were quite proud of Norway then. And on the other side of this slide, you can see Sensible, who received funding in the first call in January. So there are links there. You can have the presentation later, so you can read more about these companies. We in Innovation Norway are here to support you in the application process and also in the project period when your project is funded. And please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any further questions or would like to apply for EU funding. Well, my colleagues and I are ready to help you, so don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Maria. So now we've heard from Paul Sigurd Malm from Research Council of Norway, and we've heard from Maria Askim from Innovation Norway. And to all of those startups and researchers and investors listening, keep in mind that this is being recorded, so that if there's any details you lost, you can either ask the questions now or you can watch the video later, and it will be available from the NORA.startup website. So Maria, I think you can stop sharing your screen now unless you have more slides. And I'll ask Paul and Anita to show their face again so we can start the panel. Thank you. Great. So I'll start by addressing you, Anita. And many people know me from before. You are the CEO and founder of Iris. And when we listened to these two presentations, we saw that there's a lot of money and it seemed very easy to get a lot of funding here. And you're not only a person that has applied, you've successfully applied for such types of fundings, right? So what is your experience?
For some, not for the EIC Accelerator. But we have some experience
with this type of, can you tell us a bit about it, the process on your side as a startup?
Yeah. So hi everyone, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the excellent two presentations. Quick background about our funding situation, and I'll go into a little bit of a rant on our experience in a moment. But you know, our company is 5 years old. We received a little bit of support from Innovation Norway early on, so kind of Innovation Norway specific grants. We have BIA money from the Norwegian Research Council, which is a research grant. We received this PES that Maria talked about, this preparatory work grant, a few years ago, and we also received what was then called Phase 1 for what was then not called the EIC Accelerator, because it's changed names a few times, but we did get the Phase 1 grant also 3 years ago, I think. So we've gotten quite a bit of funding. We have also applied to the EIC Accelerator probably 8 times, and we have not gotten the funding. And what I will start with is that Innovation Norway is amazing in helping Norwegian companies apply for the EIC Accelerator. There's a lot of support, there's a lot of advice, there's a lot of workshops and all kinds of things. So I do think that's incredibly helpful. Some of the things, I want to start with one quick anecdote, which is I met with one of the people who was instrumental is in the entire Horizon 2020 funding body, like as a principal. And he said, you know, when he heard of what we did, he's like, oh, that's great. That's perfect for this accelerator thing we have. It's a quick little application and then an interview. It's a super simple process. You know, you're totally going to get that funding. And I think for me, that reflects fundamentally how the EU regards their processes, because there is no, I mean, if you think of anything that has to do with the European Union, it's wonderful and an amazing social experiment, and the EU keeps the peace in Europe, it's also incredibly clunky and time consuming. And I think that is true also for the EIC Accelerator from a startup's perspective, right? And it's a big grant, it's a really good grant, but it is occasionally excruciatingly painful to apply to. And I think that is important to note, that like it can very quickly be a time drain and really, really painful. So I want to highlight that. We keep applying, don't get me wrong, but that's the state of it. A couple of things to note on it. There has been a trend the last few years. I am hoping that this change that Maria talked about, that there might be a shorter application and then a longer one once you're invited. I'm hoping that might change this, but there has been a trend in the last few years where a lot of startups are using consultants, highly paid consultants that will take 50,000 euros to write your application because it's about 2% who get this funding, right? And there's a lot of good startups in Europe. So you don't only have to be like a top excellent company with a unique value proposition, you also have to have people that are really, really, really good at writing applications. And it is excruciating. It requires a lot of design and layouting and good writing. And the requirements that the EU lists are quite simple, like Maria went through. But when you get into it and you've written a few applications, you realize that the implicit requirements are not stated anywhere, but they are there. And that's our experience with it. And you know, another thing to know, which is unfortunate, and I understand with the scale of the grant, with the scale of it, it's hard to do, but the feedback you get on an application is also very limited. So it's very, very hard to know what you actually can improve for the next time. And I think that's really, really unfortunate. And having been on some panels and been on the other side, for example, for BIA financing and Research Council financing, I think the Research Council are great at giving concrete feedback so that you can improve your application to the next time. The EIC Accelerator does not do that, unfortunately. So it's and that becomes frustrating, right? Because you have like we've been in the situation. We've been in the situation where we've applied one time, gotten a score, resubmitted, and gotten a worse score, even if we improved some things. So that's my my take on that. So I would, you know, and there's some you know, I'll end my rant in a second. I just want to give people realistic expectations because the grant is so good, but it is, unless you're very, very, very sure that you qualify and you speak with an honest discussion with Innovation Norway, for example, about like, are we really a good fit for this? It is likely to be a waste of time. And that's my blunt disclaimer for now. And I'm happy to answer questions about it. But I think it's important to note, not to discourage people to apply, but just be realistic about the time it takes. And whether or not you have exactly what it takes. That would be my rant, and I'm sorry if I discouraged anyone. We keep applying.
So thank you for the rant, Anita. We will. So let's continue on that topic. So how realistic do you think it is for a startup? If you, for example, start with Paul, how realistic is it for a startup who that has an idea, has maybe a thought process of how this product would be to get funding either nationally or through the EU system? Paul, and what would be the steps for a startup to take? If there are some startups listening now thinking, it's not realistic, or some are thinking, it's very realistic to get this type of funding. So what do you think, Paul?
Well, first, I'm sorry for Anita that you think that it's time consuming. I think that they really are working on trying to make it simpler for startups. Me, myself, I've been an investment manager for new business in Telenor. If you think it's time consuming to go to EIC, you should have tried applying for funding through an industrial investor. I think that you can use quite a lot of time without getting money that way also. And the other thing is that when you get soft funding, there are less strings attached. You don't have to have a loan on your house and your mother's cabin and all that. So, I think that Maria gave some really good tips from how to see if you could qualify. I mean, read that list, and also if you want to qualify through the Norwegian funding system, there are both help to get in through the Research Council and through Innovation Norway. The Research Council has a SkatteFUNN, that is, I mean, the most simple way to get funding to do research ever, and it's a very simple way to apply. And also, of course, you can go to research institutions and get help there, and also get funding through BIA, the BIA instrument. I mean, that is a very good start.
And you can get quite a lot of funding from those programs. But so these were startups. What about the type of master students who are just finishing? They've done an excellent master project and they want to continue with the project, but into a business type of sector. So Maria, is there any guidance you can give such a student, for example? Is there anything in Innovation Norway that could guide a master student project into some realistic funding?
From Innovation Norway, it's we have the basic funding for when you have your idea. Then you can contact us and you can already start discussing your idea with an advisor. We have there's a phone number you can call, so you can come directly and someone that will you can ask all the questions you are wondering about. This person will already give you feedback if this is something that could be viable, that you should continue on, and advise you in the direction of what kind of funding would be available. We have some kommersialiseringsstøtte and for the really startup. So there are absolutely possibilities for those of you who have a great idea.
And when we heard the examples from Anita, she applied 8 times, I thought she said, unsuccessfully. So what should you do then if you apply for some funding and you get a rejection? Is it time to give up and go to the private market, or is it better to try again? So what do you think, Paul, and then we'll get Anita's point on that.
Well, very often we see that they come back, resubmitted projects, and applicants come back and get funding. If they get some kind of feedback, it's a very good way to make the application better, and that we see both for research projects and for companies. If you get any kind of feedback, that is a very good way to make it better. So yes, I think that they should not give up. But if Maria or some of my colleagues tell them that you should maybe go somewhere else, you should listen to that.
What is your experience in that?
And if I can add a reflection, I did want to highlight SkatteFUNN as well that Paul mentioned. If you have R&D costs, it's absolute no-brainer and absolutely brilliant. We have that as well. And I think as a startup, realistically speaking, you want to try a little bit of everything, right? You want to apply for funding. We also applied for BIA a couple of times before getting it, and there the feedback is very helpful. So it's easier to resubmit because you know if you change this part and if you improve this part, this is more likely to happen. And with BIA, if you do research, it's also statistically a higher chance as well in terms of number of projects that get funding. So yeah, I think in terms of like private versus public, investments versus grants, I think the answer is always a good mix is great. Maybe you don't want to, put up your mother's cabin in the woods for security, but it's also good with investors that are pushing you in a different way than just public funding. So I think a mix of that is always going to be good. And I know I sound very negative on the EIC, and we're probably jaded because of all the applications, but in comparison with some of the other grants we've applied to, it's just a very cumbersome process that it has an EU vibe, if one can say that. But it is also a brilliant grant for those who do get it. So it's which is always the hard balance, right? Because it's not worth it until it is. And so the question is, of course, how many times do you try and what resources do you have to try? And for that, you might have to get either more local regional funding or investors.
So is there any limitation on how many times you can apply and how often you can apply? Maria, for example, can I apply every second month and send in a new application?
This is a good question. Up until now, there have been 4 cutoffs each year. So you could apply 4 times a year if you did not succeed in the last round. However, this is also something that the Commission now is addressing. There is a very high level of resubmissions, and for the Commission, this is also takes a lot of resources for companies applying again and again. But also, as Anita is saying, it's also it's resource demanding for the companies. So what they want to do now is to simplify this by actually putting a limit to how many times you can apply. And this means we don't have the final rules on this yet, but they are saying that you can try twice. And if you don't succeed, then you need to wait at least a year before trying again. So, but this will be more clear in a few weeks time. Yeah.
And is there any rule of thumb if you're good enough of how to apply? Is there any guidance you can give, maybe Paul? So knowing that a company of 2 people, maybe, is that a typical startup that can apply, or do you have to be bigger, more mature to apply, Paul?
Well, usually if you are like a company with only 2 persons, I think, and maybe you have maybe 1 year or something like that history, I would say that you're probably not qualified. I don't know, maybe Maria is better to answer that. She had some of the rules of thumbs listed in her presentation, actually.
Would you like to fill in, Maria?
Yes, we see our statistics say that usually companies, they have to be a little bit solid in that, meaning they have existed for a few years. General between 10 to 30 employees. However, this is not there's not a straight answer to that, because we also see startups maybe starting a year or 2 ago that have also succeeded. So it really, in the end, it comes to the innovation, the company, and the people. If all this is right, that is what will decide whether you will get the funding or not. But of course, we have the statistics, and yeah, someone sticking out from the statistics. So yeah.
And is there any advantage of applying quickly? So I have an idea now, and I'm afraid that some other will have the same idea and apply before me. So do I need to get my ass off and start right now? Is that a good thing to do? Or should I wait a bit and let the idea mature?
Then I would wait a little bit, because only the idea you don't have enough. Because you remember, you need to have a very solid business plan. You have to have done some research, some development. You have analyzed the markets. It's not something, usually you are not you cannot provide all this information when you are at the ID stage. So you should have gotten a little bit further, yeah, for the EIC accelerator, yeah.
That's nice to know. And so I know that in the audience, there's a blend of people, both from startups and from research institutions. And if we start with you, Anita, what do you think is a good collaboration between a startup and a research institution, such as a university, in such applications?
So in the EIC application, let me know, Maria or Paul, if this has, for the EIC specifically, this might have changed, but as far as I'm aware, still today, you apply as just one partner. So you can't actually have a research partner per se. Obviously, from my perspective, and you know, it's always good to show that you are collaborating with powerful institutions and researchers, etc. But the EIC Accelerator is not a research grant per se. It's more of a commercial development grant, which means it doesn't have that same research requirement as, for example, the BIA grant does, as what I understand the Pathfinder grant is as well, but maybe Paul can speak to that. So in terms of it really, you know, how you collaborate with research organizations or institutions will really depend on what kind of money you're applying to. So, you know, it's good to have those, you know, established connections and keep in contact and collaborate, and then per grant, per opportunity, then you can kind of design the relationship with that entity in that specific grant.
Good. Yes, and one question that's come from the audience is there any difference in success rate between a grant-only application and a blended finance? Do you know the difference there? Maybe Maria is the best to answer.
There is what we see now since the blended finance have been introduced, that it increases every time how many are applying for blended finance. And this is also the direction the Commission want to go with this instrument, because they want the companies, the innovations with the largest potential to apply, and those will be in need of the equity. And what we have heard from people sitting in the jury, the ones who are making the final decision, is that they actually decide the blended financing first. And when they have decided who of these companies who have asked for blended finance who will get support, then they go to the ones who have applied for grant only. So I would say it increases your chances to apply for blended finance or grant with consent to be open for the equity possibility. So it's I don't have a number on the on how many, but there are, for example, from the Norwegian results, the last ones we got in May, 6 companies asked for blended, 1 company grant only. So that can be one example. Yeah.
I think this is a good example of some of those implicit rules that unless, you know, and being a Norwegian company, then you have Innovation Norway that knows these things, but you feel sometimes like you're fumbling in the dark a little bit because that's seemingly an implicit rule or guideline.
That's true. There's all of these implicit rules, and it's hard to navigate, and hopefully this helps a bit. But there's also these PS-midler, prosjektetableringsstøtte. So maybe, Paul, do you know, could you give a bit of information on that? Do you know about that, or maybe Maria could assist?
Well, I know a little bit about it. Maybe also Maria could fill me in. But you can what you can do is to apply for project establishment support, to write applications and to get help to get the writing, and there you have to have all the right stuff into the application. Many companies actually use consultants to help them, consultants that have had success helping others getting funding. And there's quite a lot of these guys out there that will help you. So you can, what you have to do is that you apply for funding, and then you don't get the money until you have actually sent in an application that is eligible. And eligible means that it's they say that, well, this is actually relevant for the call, and it's an application that has well, what usually is what is needed for getting funding. But you don't need to be guaranteed funding, of course. And then you can get, I think, up to almost 400,000 kroner. But you have to, of course, you have to tell what you used your money for and all that, have a budget.
So have you applied for these PS-midler, Anita?
Yes, we applied for that.
That was a key success to you then, maybe.
Yes, no, that was great. And can I speak to the consultant thing, because I think that's also,
yes,
there are, per my experience, there are some brilliant consultants out there that are really good at attracting funding, and there's a lot of consultants out there that will claim that they're really good at attracting funding, and then I mean, and we even, you know, we went with a consultant that we had gotten recommended, and it was a really bad experience. So and I won't go into the details of it, but it was a waste of time and money and resources and a lot of headache to work with them, because it was not a good experience. So I would also, and you know, having been around for 5 years and being a company that would typically qualify for the XE Accelerator, you know, we also get a lot of inbound consultancy requests or proposals from these consultants. So to startups, if you're considering using a consultant, be very, very, very careful in picking the right one, because there's a lot of them out there that have scaled this to big business and are, you know, basically I'm not going to say that they're scamming you, because they probably mean well. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, that's the fact, right? That they will take, you know, some might work on a commission and say you only pay, you know, most of this money if we get the funding, but like a lot will work on quite high initial commission or initial payment, sorry. And then some of them will take 5 or 10% of your grant. So that's their proposal. And that's just a crazy amount of money. And so like, if you want to use consultants, collect a lot of offers, talk to startups that have successfully used them in the past, and talk to startups that have unsuccessfully used them in the past, potentially as well. So that would be my word of caution. We are looking at, you know, we have used a consultant in the past and that went bad, as I said, and we might do it again, but with a much more cautious approach. I think we essentially wasted 2 of our tries for this, of the several we had. 2 of them was wasted on this consultant, where, yeah, that was also a hit and very much miss. So that would be my, you know, I'm not opposed to using consultants, just be very mindful of it.
And Maria and Paul, do you have any idea how many of the successful applicants have gone through this type of consultant beforehand, or is it most of them without a consultant? Is that some statistics you keep at all, or is it kept secret? Maria, maybe.
Yeah, what we see right now is that quite a lot of the proposals have been written by a consultant. It's really the direction everything has been going. And I think Anita sharing her experience, I think it's really important to know how this consulting business operates, because it has become a big business for the EU programs. And this is also something the EU, and we are hoping will change a little bit with the new application process. That the first you send in is a simpler application, shorter one. You should not have need at all for a consultant to be able to send it in. There will also be changes to the proposal template, making it easier. That is also a goal they have tried. They are trying to reach all the time. So they are, of course, hoping to move away from this trend where you have to have a consultant to be able to send in your proposal. And I also, because I see proposals written by consultants, I see proposals written by companies. And sometimes I think maybe an evaluator also will appreciate having one that a company has actually written. They see that it's not perfect. It's not in the usual setup where you see everything has followed the template perfectly, but it's something the company themselves have delivered. And I think that's important too. And I think hopefully that we will see a change. Yeah.
Yes, we see also in the Research Council, we see a lot of our applications that has been written by consultants, and it's a cut-paste kind of thing where you actually find text that we can find in other applications. Actually, we have computers now that we can do some search. So sometimes, I mean, in SkatteFUNN, it's almost like that someone is standing beside the cash machine and want to help you take out money, and then they take a cut. And I think that the EIC, they have actually started. They think of using video, so that the actual funders will present the company, so that they will know that they actually own the idea and that they own the application. So that suddenly when they show up, they actually don't know how to present it. That is bad.
So are you suggesting that if our research career does not work, we should start as consultants for writing proposals? Because this seems to be financed more. So how much does a consultant typically cost if a company wants to hire one? Anita, if you don't want to tell, that's okay.
No, I can tell you. So back in the day when there was a phase 1 and a phase 2, the usual way consultants would do it is to say, we help you, we take 5,000 euros and we help you apply for phase 1. And if we get phase 1, we take all of phase 1, which is 50,000 euros, and we keep that to write phase 2. And then we're going to take a small cut of phase 2, which is 2 or 3 million. So yeah, it's good business.
Yeah. Good business. Okay, so maybe. So I would like to, so we're getting close to an end, and I think it has been a great panel, a great discussion. So I would ask Paul and Maria a last question, and that is 2 questions really. First is, where can you find more information? And second is, what do you think NORA.startup's role should be in such a process? So what could it be the best use for NORA.startup according to your intelligent mind? So maybe Paul, would you like to start? Where can you find more information if they're interested, and what do you think NORA.startup should be? Well,
there's a lot of very good information both at Innovation Norway's websites and Research Council's websites. So I would start there, and then when you actually think that you might qualify for funding, you should contact us. That was the first thing. When it comes to NORA.startup as their role, I think that they can help actually give information on specific calls that might be relevant for your community, and especially within AI. Every once in a while you get some challenges actually within AI that might be relevant, and also it could be interesting to use the community to get ideas on how to succeed. Yeah.
So Maria, more information and role of NORA.startup at the end there.
Yes. As Paul said, there is a lot of information on our web pages. Innovation Norway and Norwegian Research Council. So we'll find a lot there. Also, you will get the presentations, I guess, with the information. And of course, for specific questions, no problem to contact us. And we are happy to discuss potential project ideas to see if they qualify to apply. That's our job. So, and I think the network has an important role as well in contributing with information, making it available for everyone. Not everyone knows about all these possibilities existing, whether it's Norwegian funding, EU funding, because there is, it is a small, no, it's a big jungle, actually. So just to make your way through it, I think that's going to be an important role in this network, and to connect people to the right people to help you. Because we are here and we are a lot of people ready to help.
A lot of people ready to help. That's good ending words, I think. And then I'll thank you all panelists, Paul Sigurd Malm from Research Council of Norway, Maria Askim from Innovation Norway, and not least Anita Brede from IRIS. And for all the audience, keep in mind that the next NORA Startup web event is in 2 weeks at the same time. And then we will talk about how to acquire talent. So now we've learned how to get money. So that's done. So we can then get the talent next time. So see you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Class should stop recording.